Have you ever wondered how authors take what is essentially just black ink on a blank page and magically transform those flat words into real, breathing, three-dimensional people? I mean, people we love, people we hate, people we actually mourn when a story finally ends. Well, it doesn't happen by accident. It is a very deliberate, highly strategic process. In this explainer, we're opening up the case files on characterization. So grab your magnifying glass and get comfortable, because we're going to learn how to read between the lines like a true literary detective.
So, how do characters truly come to life? As a reader, you're essentially a detective walking onto a scene trying to solve the mystery of who these people really are. How do writers manipulate our feelings and build those deep emotional connections? How do they make us trust someone implicitly or instantly feel suspicious of someone else? They do it by leaving behind a trail of evidence. And the way they leave that evidence generally falls into two distinct categories. Let's look at the first piece of the puzzle.
All right, here's our first major concept: direct characterization. I absolutely love the simplicity of this. Direct characterization is exactly what it sounds like. It occurs when the author explicitly tells the reader what a character is like. Think of this as the straight-shooter approach to writing. The author isn't trying to hide a single thing, they're just handing us the facts straight up. It gives us immediate information. There's no guessing game, no ambiguity. The author just points right at the character and says, "Hey, this is who they are."
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. Take Maria, for example. If the text says, Maria was a kind and generous woman who always helped her neighbors, boom, right there. The author directly states her traits. We don't have to wonder if she's nice or if maybe she's secretly selfish. We are explicitly handed the adjectives, kind and generous. It makes her character completely clear right from the jump, and it's a fantastic tool when an author needs to establish a baseline fact quickly.
Now, it gets really interesting when we put these two approaches side by side. First, you have a direct confession. John was brave. The author just tells us. It's crystal clear. But consider the alternative, which introduces our second category, indirect characterization. What if the text says, John rushed into the burning house to save a child? Notice the difference there? The author doesn't even use the word brave. Instead, they show us John's bravery through this heart-pounding action. It requires us to gather the clues and make the inference ourselves. We have to connect the dots.
So let's define this properly. Indirect characterization occurs when the author shows a character's traits through their actions, words, thoughts, appearance, and interactions rather than just stating them directly. This is where you, the reader, absolutely must become a detective. You're drawing conclusions because the author is completely committing to showing rather than telling. And honestly, it creates a much more realistic character. Because think about it, in real life, nobody walks up to you with a label on their forehead that says, I am brave or I am generous. We figure out who people are by observing them.
Let's bring Maria back to the stand, but this time through a different lens. What if we read, Maria spent her weekend delivering food to elderly neighbors without expecting anything in return? Compare that to earlier where the author just told us she was kind. Here, the word kind is completely missing. Generous is nowhere to be found. But we still know she possesses those traits, right? We infer that she's selfless purely based on observing her actions. We did the detective work ourselves, and that naturally makes us far more engaged as readers. Let's move to and see how this builds into your ultimate detective toolkit. When authors use indirect characterization, they almost always rely on a framework known as the STEAL method. It's an acronym designed to help us look for clues. S is for speech. Pay close attention to what the character says and exactly how they say it. T is for thoughts. What's really going on inside their head? E is effect on others. This is a massive one. How does the room change when this person walks in? A stands for actions. What do they actually do when the pressure's on? And finally, L is for looks, their physical appearance and how they present themselves. Master the STEAL method, and I promise you, you will never miss a clue again. All right, time to head into the interrogation room. Let's playfully challenge you to apply what you've just learned. Quick question, what exactly is direct characterization? Is it when an author shows traits through actions, or is it when they directly tell you those traits? Or maybe when the reader has to guess? Lock in your answer. And if you went with the author directly telling the reader about a character's traits, you are absolutely correct. Excellent work! Remember, direct characterization is all about those explicit, undeniable facts. No guessing, no inferring. Just the plain truth handed right to you on a silver platter. Let's keep this momentum going. Think about these 4 scenarios and tell me which one is a true example of direct characterization. Ben sharing his lunch, Anna staying behind to clean, Mark being honest and never lying, or Lisa smiling and comforting a friend. Remember, You're looking for a direct confession. 3 of these describe behaviors. Only 1 is telling you an explicit fact.
The answer is Mark being honest and never telling a lie. Why? Because Mark's example is the only one that simply states a trait outright: honesty. The others, like Ben sharing his lunch or Anna staying behind to clean, well, those are behavioral clues. They're actually great examples of indirect characterization because they require us to infer that Ben is generous and Anna is responsible.
You guys are doing fantastic. Let's keep going. Let's test your grasp on the layered detective work we discussed with the Steele method. When we learn about a character through their actions, their speech, and their thoughts, what kind of characterization is that? Lock it in.
You nailed it. It's indirect characterization. Whenever you're piecing together actions, analyzing speech, or peeking into a character's private thoughts, you are totally engaging with indirect characterization. Okay, let's dive into this next concept and prep for identifying a really practical example. Now let's flip the script. Can you spot the hidden clue among a bunch of direct statements? We're looking for an example of indirect characterization this time. We have John, who was hardworking, Mia, who was shy, Carla, who practiced piano for 3 hours daily, and Pedro, who was friendly. Which one of these forces you to do the mental math?
It's Carla practicing the piano for 3 hours every single day. Notice how that sentence doesn't use the words dedicated, disciplined, or passionate? We just don't need those words. Carla's incredible dedication is shown entirely through her intense, repetitive action. And that is the true magic of indirect characterization.
Last pop quiz question, detectives. Let's see how well you remember the essential 5-part framework we went over earlier. In our Steele method framework, what does the letter A stand for? Is it attitude, actions, appearance, or achievement?
It's actions. Remember, while speech, thoughts, effects on others, and looks are all super vital, actions are very often the absolute loudest clues a character can leave behind in a story. What a character actually does, especially when their back is against the wall, tells you almost everything you need to know about who they truly are.
Let's zoom out to the big picture for a second. So, the crucial point is, why does any of this actually matter? Well, effective characterization is the very heartbeat of storytelling. It's what makes characters believable and memorable. It develops conflicts and relationships, because when you put 2 highly developed, clashing characters in a room, sparks are definitely going to fly. It advances the plot organically. It reveals the deeper themes the author wants to convey. But most importantly, it builds emotional connections with us, the readers. These techniques are exactly how authors build captivating stories that hook us from page 1.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Think about your absolute favorite character from a book or a movie. Just picture him in your mind right now. When you first met them in that story, were you simply told who they were through direct characterization? Or did the author make you investigate? Did you have to watch their actions, listen to their speech, and slowly uncover their true nature through indirect characterization? I highly encourage you to apply this detective lens to whatever you read or watch next. I promise you, it will completely change the way you experience stories. Happy sleuthing.